What does Yeshua mean by saying not to resist an evil person? When it comes to defending the defenseless, like we read in the Bible where men and women stood up against evil rulers and plots to harm God's people, Yeshua is not saying to stand down and let terror and evil win, but in our personal relationships with others who offend us, to replace vengeance with love and forgiveness. It's like this. The Spirit of God is more powerful than any person. Followers of Yeshua have a personal relationship with God through His Spirit. As followers of Yeshua, we do not need to resist or defend ourselves against evil people because the Spirit of God is greater than evil. But beyond leaning on God's power to defend us, Yeshua's strategy here is that instead of defending our right, we take up the role to reconcile and bless. Going the extra mile is one more mile to share God's love with that person who's wronged you.
But this is a bit bigger than just winning by God's power. The idea again relates to us being a light in the world, as we've discussed earlier. Our goal is to reflect God's ways and not just to love our neighbor, but to love our enemies. In this way, we're reflecting God's love. We love because He first loved us. When did God promise to send the Messiah? After Adam and Eve disobeyed God. When did God give the law to Moses? During the time when the sons of Israel were building a golden calf. When did Messiah Yeshua lay down His life for our salvation? In the midst of a generation that not only rejected Him, but plotted to destroy the one bringing them life. But God demonstrates His own love towards us, in that while we were yet sinners, Messiah died for us. It is because He loves us that we can have a new relationship with God through Yeshua. We can love our enemies because God loved us even before we believed in Yeshua.
Holding on to anger leads to bitterness, and the cycle of retribution, as we discussed, only leads to more pain and suffering for both parties involved. But God's way of returning blessings and love to those who hurt us not only sets us free from that cycle, but can turn the greatest enemies to our greatest allies.
History is full of these stories, but the best one we can share is about a man named Saul. Saul was raised in the top Jewish schools under the great Rabbi Gamliel and quickly rose to leadership in the Sanhedrin. But during the great persecution of the believers in Jerusalem, it was Saul who made havoc of the new communities of believers. He went from city to city, from house to house, dragging them to the prison and condemning them to death.
If anyone was an enemy of Yeshua and the new believers, it was Saul. But as he journeyed to Damascus to capture more followers, Yeshua met him along the way. Yeshua could have wiped him out right there, but instructed him to go and wait in Damascus. Blinded by the vision of Yeshua, Saul made his way into the city, led by the men who journeyed with him. Then Yeshua appeared to a disciple named Ananias in a vision and said to him, "Get up and go to the street named Straight, and ask in the house for Judah for someone from Tarsus named Saul. For look, he is praying, and in a vision he has seen a man named Ananias coming in and laying his hands on him, so that he might regain his sight." But Ananias answered, "Lord, I have heard from many about this man, how much harm he has done to your holy ones in Jerusalem, and here he has authority from the ruling priests to tie up all who call on your name."
But God told Ananias to go, that Saul would be a choice instrument to bring his name before the nations and the children of Israel. Saul ended up becoming one of the greatest leaders to bring the gospel to the nations. You may know him as the Apostle Paul, who wrote over a quarter of the New Testament.
What if Ananias said no? If we draw a line of unforgiveness against others, then we're limiting God's work of redemption through our lives. It's an honor and a blessing to be working with God as a minister of reconciliation. Part of the major witness of the love of God in our heart is how we in turn love others. Everybody likes people who are nice to them. Even bad people like people who are nice to them. What makes our relationship with Yeshua special is that we are able to show love to people who are hard to love.
We can show love by being patient, helping, encouraging people who are hurting, and simply listening without casting judgment. Our Messiah is patient with us when we make mistakes. He encourages us and draws us to know God. He doesn't accuse or put us down when we make mistakes. Instead, He gives us the strength to show the same love He's given to others.